Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Santa Rita Union School Board District meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Can we start off with the roll call, please?
Ms. Cindy Lopez,
Present.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Present.
Ms. Alvariano,
Present.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval,
Present.
Mr. Neil Patel is not present.
Okay, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is item 1.3, approval of the board agenda.
We would like to make a request to table item 8.1, which is our information item for cell phone policy.
Motion to adopt the agenda as amended?
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion 4-0.
Okay, today on closed sessions, we have item 2.1, public employee discipline dismissal release complaint under Government Code Section 54957. We have item 2.2, potential litigation under Government Code Section 54956.8 and 54956.9. And 2.3, public employee performance evaluation under Government Code Section 54957. 2.4, conference labor negotiators under Government Code Section 54957.6. Do we have any public comments regarding closed session items?
Do not.
Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn the closed session?
Make a motion to adjourn into closed session.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion 4-0.
Okay, we'll see everybody afterwards. Okay, welcome everybody back to the Santa Rita Union School District Board meeting. I want to reconvene back into open session. During closed session, there was nothing voted on, so nothing to report out. We move on to item 5.1, which is approval of the consent agenda items for items 5.2 to 5.5. I can get a motion, please.
I make a motion to approve.
The consent, okay.
Mhm.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion.
Aye.
Oh, sorry. Motion 4-0.
We're gonna move on to item 6.1. Any comments from SRTA?
No, not this evening.
Okay. Any comments from CSEA?
Not this evening.
Okay, then move on to the superintendent's cabinet.
Our Director of Engagement and School Climate, Dr. Prather Smith.
So just real quick, I just wanted to hand out to you the quick, this is our KSBW campaign and what the numbers are looking at right now. I won't go through the whole thing, but just so you know, in the past month, we've had over 53,000 impressions, so 53,000 engagements. And the good part of that is that people remember there's kind of that time that people stay watching and they're watching the whole thing. So that's great, the full longer video. On the second page, you'll see that our biggest target area, so of those, because remember we expanded out kind of a little bit where we show where that opportunity is, but of those 53,000, 24,167 are within our 93906 area code. So we're getting a really good reach in our area where families are getting that information that's coming out. We're getting ready to plan our next campaign, what we're going to look at. So I'll hopefully be sharing with you what our focus will be. This last one, remember, was around really highlighting our after school programming opportunities, which are doing really well. Our programs are really, really full. And we are expanding to our 2 middle school sites soon. So that's it.
Do you have an idea what the next campaign is going to be focused
No.
on?
I think, yeah, I need to kind of brainstorm.
Sure.
Part of that I've been we work with Jessica Hull, the communications, to kind of look at what's there. What do we really want to bring forward at this time? So we've done the facilities one, kind of updating facilities. We've done after school. We thought about doing something around support services provided by the district. So like all of our mental health support, our collaborations with Centro Binacional and with BHC and some of those, really highlighting what else we bring to the district. But I haven't had a chance to meet with her yet.
Okay, and then I know that's been a big request of Neil is when those get done, if you guys just can send
Yep.
us the.
Yeah, we'll always make sure we get them to you. And then I'll just add with that, we did have, and I put it in the Friday letter, our first Saturday Academy, again, amazing turnout. And any students who didn't come Saturday were contacted, and then that program will increase. So that's a 5-week program, 5 Saturday program. So 4 more Saturdays for that.
Okay, thank you.
Our Chief Business Officer, Rosa Zamudio.
I have a presentation coming up, so I have nothing to report. No.
And our Assistant Superintendent, Ms. Becky Moore.
There it goes. Thank you. Just one thing really to comment on tonight, and that is that we have begun our district learning walks. So our first ones of the year started last week and are continuing through this week. And it's really great to see the students learning. Clearly, teachers have adopted the scope and sequence that they built in the spring. We're seeing the connections in what they're teaching to those plans. And so really exciting work. We have 3 more schools to visit, so we've visited half of them so far.
Any questions, comments? No? Okay, thank you. And I'll move on to the board and the superintendent. Start off with Ms. Cindy Lopez.
I don't have much to report besides last week we had our meeting, our safety meeting. It was a good informative meeting. We had a presentation from Roe from Montage Health, right? Really good presentation about, opiates and all of that, and NARC, like how we have what our schools have. It was a really, really, really good presentation, and teachers here were really engaged, and hopefully they took it back. They are working with the county to come and do presentations for the children. And, it was like one of the really interesting things she did. She grabbed a little pack of sugar and said, you know, this little pack of sugar, how much do you think someone like the number was crazy, like 43,000 or something could die out
Doses, yeah.
of overdose with that, you know, like will affect and 2,000 could die of them. So like it was just very interested and like for kids to be not like, hey, this looks like a candy because what it's not, it's just very good information. I was very pleased with that. And then also our numbers for I don't know the exact numbers, some of us have, but I know that our families have been using, you know, all of what we're using the money with mental health and all that. So that is really good. It was just really good information. So other than that, I mean, I don't have much to present, but that is all for me.
And I did leave some extra posters in the back. It's these fentanyl awareness posters that are here. So if anybody wants them for anything else, they're in the back also.
Okay, Ms. Sarah Turner.
Thank you. I was not at our meeting 2 weeks ago because I was at back to school night for my own teaching job. But previous to that, I did go to the facilities committee meeting that I know that Victor reported out at our previous meeting. So I'm always really encouraged by the amazing work that maintenance does and the thoughtfulness of checking in with all the sites about what their needs are.
Okay, Ms. Alvariano.
Nothing to report this time around, but when we get to doing the curriculum, or is it the curriculum council? Yeah. Then I should have something then.
Okay, appreciate it. And nothing to report on my end either. So Richard Alderman.
Mostly want to echo what Becky said. I've been able to go on the site visits for the learning walks. It was really great to see the implementation of our literacy programs, UFly and Haggerty, and in our classrooms, and it's already like with such natural ease. So that was really great to see people leaned into doing that. It's our students need it. And so I really was impressed with how our teachers just obviously hit the ground running with it and invested in it. So looking forward to seeing what kind of positive impact that has for our students. Always great to visit our school sites. They're well kept. You know, just people being able to showcase what they are working on and what they have with their students. And I'm always happy when Becky invites me to go on those. So thanks.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to public comments. Is there any public comments regarding non-agenda items or agenda items?
We have neither.
Okay, and then table was tabled. 9.1, approval of the 2023-2024 Santa Bernardino School District unaudited actuals.
All right, so you should have a PowerPoint slide in front of you. And no, wait 2 seconds. That's good. All right. So this is not a budget report. It does have the last budget report for the new year. However, this is more focused on actuals for 23-24. And they're called unaudited actuals because they haven't been reviewed by the auditor, which they actually just finished last week, but we haven't had the final audit report. So that's why they call it unaudited actuals. Just think of it actuals for closing last year. So our focus this year in regards to our finances was really to take advantage of all those one-time funds and spend as much as we could for the services that we needed on site. So just going to the first page, this has the overall general fund 01. And I usually what I do is go compare the last budget versus the actual, how much we actually spend, and then going over the big differences. So on the first line for the LCFF funding, the difference was within our LCFF calculator, we also put the students that are served through Monterey County Office of Education. So when we got the last enrollment numbers, the unduplicated count, and the ADA was different from our last budget projection. So that's why you see a difference there. It is a decrease because it went down. Their enrollment went down, their ADA went down. So we had to make that reduction, and that affected our funding. The federal funding, it's pretty much our Title I, Title II, Title IV, all of those restricted funding. The last allocations that we got from the state saying this is pretty much your final allocation for the year came in higher than my last budget. So that's why you see an increase on the federal funding. Okay, so the other state income, you see a reduction there. The way that the state fund us for the ELOP, as you know, is that they were giving us the money ahead of time. So we had in our books money from 21, 22, 22, 23, and 23, 24. The funding for 21, 22, and 22, 23, they give us until the end of September of this year to spend it. So we already spent all the 21, 22 and part of the 22, 23. And with the funding for 23, 24 for this closing year, the way that they did it is that you're only gonna get funded based on the number of days that you were open. So when we did the calculation and we were open the last month of June, and for the number of days that we had, we were able to keep about 800,000. And then all of the rest of the money, about $4 million, we have to send it back to the state. And the same for the new year, the money that we're spending right now from the 22, 23, whatever we don't spend by the end of this month, we have to set up a payable on the new year on the 24, 25. So that's why you see a reduction in revenue, because we budgeted that we have that money because we actually got the cash in hand. However, that money, they were supposed to only send us based on the number of days, but since they didn't know how many districts were doing the program. And as you know, as we were trying to open the program and we didn't have staff, there was a lot of challenges just to be in compliance with the 9 hours. It was one of the big challenges. And with COVID and everything going on, it was just very challenging. It wasn't until 23, 24 that we got the coordinator, we got everything in place. And that's why we have a negative revenue or a reduction in revenue in there. We did spend a lot of money. That is correct. We spent about $2 million. Yes, and we bought also storage units, the ELOP van. So all the needs that we needed for the program that we immediately went and purchased that with no limits, because the point was to spend as much, and we did on the amount of time for $2 million. That's how much we were able to spend. So then on the next line for other local revenue came in higher. The main reason for this is, I'm sure I talked about this before. It's pretty much that cash that we have in the county treasury earns interest. The last year, it came out really lower. So this year I was very conservative, and it actually came in higher on the last 2 quarters. So that increase for 692,000, it's pretty much all the interest that was gained from the cash that we already had. On certificated salaries, it's pretty much a lot of the PD hourly that we budget, because we had those PD grants, and we had a lot of opportunity for PD this closing year. And we budgeted for it, we planned for it. However, not everyone took advantage of it. So there was a savings just on PD opportunities, and including the 15 hours that we provide per certificated employee, we had over 300,000 just on PD opportunities and other extra hours as well, district-wide overall. And as you can see, there's also some savings in classified, mainly due as well for extra hourlies that got budgeted, but they didn't end up using it. So that created the savings. And then the benefits for both certificated and classified, also a savings. Books and supplies. So it looks like we spent more on books and supplies of what we budgeted. The main reason for this is because when we ordered the curriculum for the new year, we did it ahead of time and we got the books in June, which is great. We thought we were going to get them in July. So part of them, we got them in June, part of them, we got them in July. When that happens, we have to make the expense when we actually receive the items. So the items that we receive early were paid out of the last year. And then the ones that we received in July, of course, got paid on the new year. So that's why you see a difference there. Other services, you see a savings there of $1.3 million. The main reason was, again, we were trying to use, or it's basically for contractor services and PD opportunities as well. That's where we paid any travel conferences for mileage, or if they want to sign up for a workshop, or we want a presenter to come or and do that PD. That was an overall savings as well. We also had savings for contract services for the CalShape grant, meaning that that grant was set up to be spent on the 23-24. However, the project got delayed. That was for the HVAC project, and it got booked between the 2 years. So some of the work was performed in the closing year, and then the other half of the project was pretty much budgeted on the new year. And that created a savings for 340. It's not really a savings, it's just moving the expense from one year to another one. We also had the Avid PD opportunity this year happened in July. So we had it budgeted in June, and because it happened in July, we had a savings on this year, but again, we moved the expenditure on the new year. Let's see, when it comes to, let me look back. Another, well, the other increase that you see at the bottom for 453,000, it's for the build back. This is based on the projected COE provided to us on the last budget revision. It was supposed to be less, and then it came in higher. So this is pretty much for the students that MCOE is serving for special education. And that's why you see an increase in there. So that's pretty much, as you can see, that's our ending fund balance, 35,341,644. We end up with the deficit of $32,167. Again, we have some savings, we have some adjustments in revenue, and that's pretty much how we end up the year. So I'm gonna go ahead and go to the next slide to go over the ending fund balance. As you can see, that was the overall Fund 1. This is splitting the unrestricted ending fund balance and the restricted. I'm not gonna read all, but as you can see, the restricted is pretty much restricted for those specific grants, and they are restricted to be used for those specific purposes. And the unrestricted, we have or 17% reserves.
Can you switch your mic? Yes.
Yeah.
Bless you.
Thank you.
And then we also set up aside $1.5 million for those one-time expenses that we know that the funds are running, and we're gonna have to, some of those services are required. So we set some money aside for that. We also have our LCAP ending fund balance. We set aside increases for special education. As you know, those are going up every year as well. And then we have reserves for cash deferrals, which are happening between June and July of 2025. So this is pretty much how we break down the ending fund balance. And as you can see on the very end, it has the total put in the unrestricted and the restricted for the $35 million. We can go to the next slide. Yes.
Yes. The reserve to cover cash deferrals, I understand why it's for, and I understand why it's necessary. My question is, how did you come up with that particular number?
So that's pretty much what it didn't came from the LCFF calculator. It's pretty much what was left over from setting up your 17% reserve and the ongoing. Yeah, that's pretty much what
Okay,
it was.
I
left
just didn't
over.
know if we were generating that number, through a formula like we do other things, or it's just what it's
Yeah,
there.
not yet, but they're gonna provide that information to us hopefully pretty soon, so we can know exactly the dollar amount. And as we move forward on the new year and we start doing the budget revisions, the first interim, once we get that dollar amount, we can go ahead and set it aside.
Okay, thank you.
If necessary, yeah.
Well, I would love for it not to be necessary, but that's not been my experience.
Fund 08, as you can see, they do fundraiser at the school sites, and that's how they get the revenue. They got more money than what we were anticipating, and they also spent more of the last budget. So that's great. At the end of the day, at the end of the year, they end up with a surplus of 22,128. So that's great. They still have some funding they didn't overspend. We can go to the next slide. This is our preschool fund. As you know, this is the program that MCOE is running for us. So even though they had a contract for which it was on our estimated actuals for $2.3 million overall, they got other small grants as well. It's based on reimbursement, so they get the money based on how much money they spend. And I know they were having a hard time also spending the funds. So they didn't spend it all, and they're gonna be returning some money to the state as well for that specific program. We can go to the next slide. So our cafeteria, as you know, since we switch or funding, or the state switched the funding to the universal meal reimbursement, we've been getting more money that we used to do pre-COVID. So overall, as you can see, they got about 59,822 more of what we were anticipating. And they also had some savings on extra hourly, maybe vacancies that they had, and that included the benefits, and also on food orders that they had. They didn't spend as much as they were projecting, and this might have been because of low participation, because they still get all the money, but they don't have to spend all the funds, right? If not all the students are coming into the cafeteria. So we go back, sorry, they end up with a surplus overall. Where is that? Of $1.2 million. And as you can see, that's our ending fund balance of $3.1 million. We're working to spend the funds. As you know, they hire now a supervisor position. The point for this fund is to make sure we're spending the funds back and giving back to our students.
Question regarding this. I know we've gotten grants for new equipment and that kind of thing, but I understand we do need to borrow. There's other equipment that we may need to buy out of this reserve as
Yes.
well. Okay,
Yes,
just-
so for those specific grants, we got funding for training and for equipment as well in our Fund 01. This came in our Fund 01, but they have plenty of funding here. If they needed additional, they could spend it here as well.
Okay, thank you.
Right, and this is our deferred revenue. This is the money that we set aside a few years ago, and pretty much what we spend this money this last year is to multiplying the Santa Rita restroom. So this is pretty much all we spend it on. We were slightly off. We still have about 130,000 for any projects that we need for our facilities.
Is that restroom functional as far as we know?
It is. We were at Santa Rita today.
Yeah.
I can tell you
I-
firsthand.
I just remember it was a process. For a while, it was kind of an expensive statute.
I know they're working on one thing, which is one of the doors gets a lot of direct sunlight. And so the shrinking and swelling at different times of the day makes it a little harder to pull open. But I know Jesus Medina is working with Donna on what we can do with that door.
Thank you.
All right, this is our bond fund, and this is where we have most of our facility projects. And you probably got already an update from Victor. I missed the last meeting because I was closing the books. But pretty much what we paid out of this fund for the 23-24, we finalized the shade structure for McKinnon, the shade structure for New Republic. We finalized the Hoya portable classrooms. We finalized the Santa Rita restroom. It's completed now. The portable GV as well. And then some of the work that got done in between both years, or that we started in the 23-24, but it's still like ongoing project, is play structures that we purchase for elementaries, and also construction work that was necessary to start the project for the locker rooms, John Gutierrez. And also John Gutierrez portable addition as well, work for architect or fees for architect fees, construction and inspections as well. So we started those projects on the 23-24, and they're ongoing projects going to the 24-25. And the difference of the $500,000, it was pretty much for the play structures that they arrive here on 23-24. It was the summer project, and then the actual installation and work is going to be performed in 24-25. So we're moving that, we're extending that, saving kind of like, I won't say a savings, but it's a reduction on the closing year, and then we're going to add those expenses on the new year. Developer fees, pretty straightforward. Any fund balance, almost nothing. We're just leaving that in there because if you have zero, they can charge a negative interest rate as well, as just the same way that we get the interest raise of revenue. If you don't got money in there, you get negative interest. So that's pretty much gonna stay like that. This is the funds that we get for any construction around the area that we can use it, and it's been pretty low lately compared to prior years. Okay, Fund 35. This is where we were planning to purchase the land for Sobrana. As you remember, we had about 4.1 or budgeted for about $4.1 million of expenditure. The land was not purchased in the last year because remember, we started all the paperwork in around June, and then it got delayed and we didn't really actually sign until July. So this is another example where the expenditure didn't happen the closing year, but it did happen next year. So you're gonna see that on my next budget revision. Something to highlight in there is that on my estimated actuals, I had the $2.2 million transfer that it was required to be able to maintain our state funding, to maintain eligible for it. It was kind of like a requirement of show that you're gonna put the money in there, and then once you get approved for your funding, show that you're gonna take the money out. So that's what we did. We budgeted. By the time I was doing the budget, it happened that we had it to do it. It had to show in our expenditure report, and then we move it out. When you look at our actuals, what we actually did, because we had DSA fees, we have testing, we have soil testing, all of those fees were paid on the closing year, but the actual land purchase, like I said, is gonna happen in the new year. But we did have a transfer in for about $500,000 just to be able to have a positive ending fund balance at the end of the purchase. So if you remember, we did a board resolution saying we're gonna borrow $500,000 from Fund 40 until we get the revised allocation from the state. Once we get the additional money from the state, then we're gonna put that $500,000 back to Fund 40, and we're gonna get the money from the state. So it's just like a temporary borrowing until we get our revised allocation from the state. So yeah, we can move to the other one. And then this is the money where we got that $500,000, as you can see on where it says actuals, on added to actuals, you should see the money coming out for the $500,000. And then the last budget, it does show those $2.2 million that we had transfer and then transfer back. So that's pretty much it. The GAN, as you remember, this is a form that it's part of the unaudited actuals. It pretty much does the calculation. It looks at your ADA for students. It looks at how much money you're spending, and it's pretty much saying the way that it's calculated to make sure that school districts are not overspending more of what they're receiving, or they're not. It's pretty much to control government waste of funding, and we are in compliance with that. And I just have to mention it here because once you approve unaudited actuals, you're also approving the board resolution for the GAN, which is this one. So we can go, and then those are pretty much all the forms, or Fund 51 is our bond that the Monterey County runs for us, or Form A, it's pretty much telling you how much, or ADA or assets. Form CEA, this is the form where it does a calculation and it tells you how much of your total expenditures you spend in the directly to the classroom. Usually what they take, or most likely what they take, is pretty much the teacher salaries. As you can see, we are out of compliance. And with this being said, I do have to apply for a waiver through Monterey County. I did that last year and the waiver was approved. This is something that is happening all over California. The challenge of being in compliance, the main reason why is because the way that we're getting funded, we're getting a lot of the one-time funds. As you know, we're increasing our services for social services, counseling, everything gets affected. Like if we have safety as well, if we have like a project for construction and it's gonna be a large amount, it does impact your percentage because they're pretty much saying out of all your expenditures, what is your percentage that is going into the classroom? Like all of our maintenance, or salaries and benefits for maintenance, for or bus driver, all of that doesn't count for it. So like I said, counseling service and all of that. So as we are going in through this one-time funds and kind of like a shift of funding, it's not only our districts, this is impacting all over California as well.
So basically, it's the way the formula is calculated because,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
I have a couple of questions. The CAA, the classroom compensation that you were just discussing, that's teachers, school books, paras in the classroom. It's like basically
Right.
everything that would be
Mhm.
within like the four walls of the classroom.
Yes, correct.
And then the other question that I had, the bond that we passed 2 years ago, is that what you're talking about would be in Fund 51?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you. Those are my two
Yes.
questions.
that's where they keep everything. Yeah, I think that's the last page. Yeah, and then I'm open for any questions or comments you might have.
Yeah, can we go back to the first slide, the one that says last budget revisions versus actuals?
Slide 1.
Yeah, slide 1, yes.
Yeah.
So just for the public, so we went from potentially projecting 1.2 million budget deficit to almost breaking even, right? Because we were just deficit spending of the 32,000.
That's correct.
Yeah. I know in your Friday letter, you mentioned that we have to give out certain funds back because of
For the
whatever-
ELOP,
yeah.
that's correct.
Does that and I'm assuming it doesn't fully get reflected in like reduced revenue we received, like as far as when it comes to
Yes.
the actuals?
Yes, so when you're comparing, and that's what you see on other state income. When I did my last budget, I did acknowledge that I got that money from the state. So it was included as, yes, this is the money that we received because they were sending all money ahead of time. And then once I close the books, I'm recognizing that I'm gonna have to send that money back.
Okay.
And that's why it looks less.
Sure. And in the Friday letter, it mentioned 4 million though.
Yeah,
When-
that's correct.
Okay. But the revenue doesn't show, or was that from your other?
Yeah, that's a very good question. The reason why it's not exactly $4 million is because we got additional funding from other grants. So instead of being negative $4 million, it's only 2.4.
Okay, got it. That was my.
Yeah,
my
that's a
question.
really good question.
Yeah, because, okay.
This may be the first time they ever paid people before they knew what to know.
Yeah, because we're always behind or
Always
LCFF.
behind, so
Yeah,
it-
and all the federal funds. It's like the money that we need, they don't send it to us, and the one that we are not gonna use, they send it to us.
Yeah, and then can we
Um,
go, so that's really good news that we were able to pretty much almost break even and not have such a huge deficit spending this year.
Yeah, so just on other state revenue, while we got more versus what we had projected, it's literacy coaches, 100K more of what I had budgeted. I know that grant is for 200K. We also had a grant for early like preschool early development grant. Yeah, that's right. For 300K. And then we got our transportation grant, which, as you remember, is a reimbursement for another 300K. So that's part of it was an increase and then that decrease. That's why it's not like an even number.
Okay, well, that makes sense. Yeah, because I saw the 4. I was like,
Yeah. Mhm.
not seeing, I was like, where
That's
is
a
it?
good
Yeah.
question.
And then, so, I mean, you mentioned that for next year, we're going to estimate 3.7 million.
Yes.
Okay.
And those are for the funds that we didn't spend we already spent all the 21, 22, but for 22, 23, because during that year we didn't have the program.
So does that potentially mean that, like on some of the projections you had given, is we're going to have a deficit revenue of the 3.7 million then? Or did we already receive
Yeah,
those?
it's gonna
Or they already
show.
received it in the previous years?
So we received the cash already.
Mhm.
But when we set the payable back to the state, since we're taking that money from revenue, it does show on the negative, on the revenue side, even though that's part of our ending fund balance. So right now we have it in our ending fund balance. It's right there at the bottom. But once we send the money back to the state, we have to take it from revenue.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like you get the money and then you send it back.
So the reason I ask is because if you go to the next slide, on our ending fund balances here, is some of the money that we have to send back within the next year reflected in those amounts? That's kind of what I was trying to get at.
Oh, where is it? Let me see.
It's the top one, the first.
Oh, the ELOP? Yeah, that's the money that yes. So when we close the books, the 23, 24, we already said we're gonna send the money back.
Mhm.
That $4.6 million is part of the money that we received for 21, 22, 22, 23, and 23, 24.
Mm.
It's all money accumulated. So part of that 4.6, we're gonna send back 3.7.
Okay, so that means our next year's financial is going to show a reduction of
A
our
reduction
ending.
of
I mean,
3.7.
obviously, depending on what else money kind of comes in,
Mhm.
it's going to show that amount. Yeah, I think that's kind of I've noticed in the years I've been on the school board how school district financials are really sometimes not a good accurate picture of where we're at because, I mean, right now it looks like we have this much, but
Mhm.
we might send back, but then they might give us one-time money again, so we might not see it again. So yeah.
And something of the good things that Summer just reminded me is that now going forward after 23, 24, the money doesn't expire. So they're gonna, let's say if they give us our new allocation for $4 million on this 24, 25, and we don't spend it all, it keeps rolling over. For the first 3 years, that's where they said you only have this amount of time to spend it and you have like to open it by this day or you don't get the funding. Going forward, there's not gonna be, you just get the money, you keep it and keeps rolling forward.
As long as we're providing service.
Yeah,
service.
yeah, those
Right.
services. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
my expectation is that it's going to normalize. The sad part about that, as we were discussing earlier, is the large influx of one-time money that we have been able to use for things that we need is not going to be there. So I think it's going to be less money, but more in general, but on a more normal, predictable cycle. I'm knocking wood.
Okay, perfect. I think those were, and thank you also for creating the detailed page as well that has the breakdown of the.
Yeah, sure.
Did anybody else have any questions? Okay, can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve and thank you, and also to your staff for the Herculean amount of work that this is. I appreciate it every single time.
Sleep. Thank you.
Okay, can I get a second, please?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion 4-0.
Okay, thank you. 9.2 is approval of the agreement with Emergis for general education behavior aid supports.
So it's usually Melanie that's bringing these behavior aids to you, but now it's me. So we have had a couple of behavior aid opportunities posted for our expanded learning Oh, no, sorry, this is general. Oh, I read the wrong one real quick. If our general education program, it's part of our LCAP that was in there. And this is to support students outside of special education and help mitigate some of the behaviors that are leading to assessment. We've had those positions posted ongoing. We'll continue to post them ongoing, but in the meantime, we have the need. And so this is 2 temporary behavior aides that can step in and fill those positions while we continue to keep them posted.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion 4-0.
Okay, 9.3, approval of the amendment to Right at School service agreements.
So as I shared earlier, we have a pretty extensive waiting list for Right at School for our middle schoolers, for our 7th and 8th graders. Currently, we've been transporting students to Santa Rita and to La Jolla so that those 6th graders have access. But because we have a middle school program, we can offer ELOP services to our 7th and 8th graders as well. And so we've had those site lead positions, which were district hired positions that would facilitate that. We still have not had viable applicants. We haven't had applicants for those positions, but we want to make sure that we're offering that support and service. We don't want to send back money. We want to offer that service to our students. And so at this time, we'll be expanding the Right at School contract to offer services at our middle school as well to clear off that waiting list, which is also required under ELOP, while we continue to keep those positions posted in hopes of continuing to expand those services.
Motion to approve.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion 4-0.
Okay, 9.4, approval of disposal of obsolete or unusable materials and equipment.
Thank you. While we don't currently have identified any large pieces, it's always best practice to bring at least one annual item in the event that our libraries are kind of going through and getting rid of books that are really old and doing a giveaway for those things. And as IT is finding their old equipment in random places and just being able to either get those to a charitable organization, or if it's beyond usable life, we can do that. Or in the event that Chuck does have a refrigerator go down and he does need to repair it, that we've got this in place so that we can go ahead and dispose of it appropriately.
I motion to approve 9.4.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion 4-0.
Okay, our next regular board meeting will be October 9th, 2024. Is there any suggested future board items?
I would like a future board item, and I mean really future, like if it's months from now, that's fine. I'm interested just because MCOE is no longer operating at the preschool area on the Gavilan View campus as they used to be. I'd be interested in a presentation of, the things like Head Start that we're still offering, and then any feedback we've gotten to the community about things that we would like to have. If there's a need. At one point, we talked about maybe when MCOE presented before that there was an interest in like infant to 3, just what are the needs that people are coming to us in the community, and what are we filling now, and what could we potentially be involved with in the future?
Okay, and then just for me, I know I did hear that there's a lot of projects getting finalized, like the shade structures, just if we can ensure that, we're letting the community know, kind of like the excitement behind like, hey, guess what? There's new shade structures across our districts and stuff. And that's it for me. If I can get to a motion to adjourn at 6:48.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion 4-0.
Okay, have a nice evening, everyone.